Good morning, everybody. You are listening to K-Talk Radio 1640 AM. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. And I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and today our very special guest is Jeff Brailio.
How you doing, Yoshi?
I'm good, buddy. You?
Great.
Good, good. Well, I'm excited for the show. We're actually going to be hearing, I think you called it, War Stories from the Courtroom.
Or stories from the war room.
Stories from the war room. Okay.
Stories from the legal war room.
Legal war room. I mean, you know, I've since I was little, I've always been fascinated with law for some reason. I probably should have gone and studied law. I didn't, but you know, you. Now that I'm older, I'm even more fascinated as I see these legal cases that will take place. You know, you can actually go read all about it, and in certain there's, I don't even remember what it's called, but I remember being introduced to a place that you can go and download legal cases and then kind of get the gist of the case. And I thought, wow, that's, you know, and I get fascinated diving in there and reading and seeing.
Yeah, you can find everything online now. It's actually very easy to find. You can actually look up Google things like cool cases or weird cases.
Interesting.
And, there's plenty of websites with weird legal stuff out there. So you can spend all day wasting time.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do celebrity cases where celebrities have been sued or sports stars have been sued and find those cases.
Interesting. Never thought of that. I never thought of that. So I love hearing about this stuff because usually there's a lesson to be learned. You know, sometimes if you rewind, it could have been avoidable, but it wasn't for whatever reason and happened. And so they're fascinating to me. And the lessons that I can pick up from it, and not necessarily saying we're going to dissect what the lesson is today, but for all of you listening, you can figure out what the lesson is for you. So I'm excited to dive into this, Jeff. You've got some stories for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's start with a couple that were retail sales.
Okay.
Now both these projects, both these cases were essentially investor projects.
Got it.
Where they were rehabbed.
Okay.
So they were fix and flip projects.
Okay.
But this was in problems that arose in the post-rehab sale to a retail client.
Gotcha.
And having to do with condition of the house. And inspections and things of that nature.
Got it.
So this really applies to anybody selling a house.
Yeah.
And so the first one, this is a fun one, because you'll know one of the contractors involved.
Okay.
I had a client, so he had a flip project and renovated the house.
Okay.
I was up in Ogden.
Okay.
And it was pretty good remodel. It was the first time he had used a certain set of guys for the work.
Sure, okay.
And the quality wasn't really up to his standards, his normal standards. He's a really experienced investor, does a lot of flips, does really good jobs.
Got it.
This one he knew there was some issues, just little things that just weren't quite done perfectly.
Sure.
So anyways, he lists it on the multiple listing service. He has an agent. Excels on a retail transaction. The buyer also had an agent representing them. That's really kind of important.
Yeah.
In both these cases, there was an agent involved.
Gotcha.
And we'll talk about some of the issues that you can have with agents.
Okay.
But his buyer was a young woman in her 20s. This was her first home.
Okay.
And she bought the house and then moved in. And she found a couple of these little things, like some maybe cracked tile in the bathroom in a corner, that sort of thing. And so she came back to him with a kind of a list of repairs. He said, hey, no problem, these things need to be done. So he started to do the list, and then she said, well, I also found a leak in the roof. Okay. Which is obviously, that's a much bigger deal than some cracked tile.
Yeah. And this is still due diligence time, right?
No, this is after. So she
so she's already moved. I thought you said that, but I was just
she already had the inspections.
Okay.
She already closed. She bought the house. She moved in.
Got it.
Because these little things weren't anything that an inspector would pick out.
Yeah.
The inspector didn't find the problem with the roof.
Yeah.
And the inspector's not going to say, hey, there's a little cracked tile here, or this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so when she moved in, that's when she kind of found the little things. But the leak in the roof was a section between the kitchen and an extension off the back.
Okay.
Where probably a porch, this is before my client even bought the house, so he didn't do this addition to the home.
Got it.
And it's very common in town for people to take their back porches, frame them in, roof them, and turn it into living space.
Right.
But then you got this sort of roofing of the roof itself, and then sort of a new roof on the porch or where the deck was for the new addition.
Right.
And so they don't really line up really well.
Yes.
So anyways, there's a little bit of leak. He said, hey, no problem. Yeah, I can see that. There'll be a leak. I'll have my roofer come out and fix it.
Yeah.
And so he sends the roofer out. And you know the roofer.
Okay.
It's our favorite roofer of all time.
Yes.
We could plug him maybe later in the show.
Yeah.
Give out his number. So he goes back and, and he did some patch jobs on the roof. That's why he was called back.
Got it.
And he's like, yeah, I'll go take a look at it. We'll make sure it's fine.
Yeah.
When he shows up, the mother of the buyer is up on the roof.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And she's up there stomping her foot all over the roof.
Oh my gosh.
Because she said she got up there to kind of, to see what was going on, even though my client, the seller in the transaction, had sent his roofer to fix the problem.
Yes.
Her mother gets up on the roof and she starts feeling a soft spot, and she literally pounds with her foot on the soft spot and puts her foot through the roof.
Oh my gosh.
Rick, I just said the name of the roofer. The roofer is literally standing on the sidewalk going, what are you doing?
Yes.
You can get up on any roof, and if you push hard enough, you're going to break something.
Yeah.
So, and at that point, the mother now gets involved. And the mother, it's mama bear syndrome.
Yeah.
This is her daughter's first house.
Right.
And so she's super concerned, and she's like, we want a whole new roof. And now you're talking from if the roofer had missed something, he probably would have fixed it for free, to maybe a couple $100.
Right.
And in fact, the original repair is only probably $50.
Got it.
Now there's a hole in the roof.
Yes.
And you need the press board underneath, and the roofing material, and the shingles.
Yes.
And for that, it was going to be $700, just that.
Oh, jeez.
And my client actually has to find, we'll fix that soft spot, and get a little repair at $700, no problem, we'll do it. And the mother refused. She goes, no, we want a whole new roof. We want the whole roof replaced.
Wow.
And we're like, no. We're not replacing the whole roof because you got up there and pushed your foot through the boards. And they refused to settle at that. They refused to have just the hole fixed and the other minor repair. They got one lawyer.
Yeah.
And I explained the situation, and went kind of back and forth, and he was arguing that they wanted a new roof and deserved a new roof, and I said no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Utah is and this is kind of, here's some lessons.
Yeah.
Utah is a buyer beware state.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's the way to define it. We don't call ourselves a buyer beware state.
Sure.
But legally, the way real estate transactions are structured here.
Yes.
The MLS listings, as you know, at the bottom says, buyer to verify all information. In fact, I got a couple of these.
Got it.
So on the multiple listing service, it says that this is informational, and the buyers to everything. The purchase contract, the Utah real estate purchase contract, also obligates the buyers to do their own inspections.
Yeah.
It gives buyers inspection periods wherein they can cancel the contract if there's something they don't like.
Yeah. Very flexible for a buyer.
Yeah, totally flexible. Because again, if the buyer proceeds and actually buys the house, that's it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's why we're so flexible with buyers in the due diligence period.
Right.
Because once they buy it, they've bought the house.
Yes.
And, it's your job to do it as a buyer, your job to do inspections, to ask for repairs.
Get a roofer there to check the roof if you want.
Check it right.
Yeah.
And they had an inspection.
Yeah.
And the inspector didn't come up with this. And again,
yeah.
On older homes, you're going to find soft spots.
Oh, yeah.
They're totally fine. They're going to keep out the water. They'll probably last for decades.
Yes.
But if you put your foot on it,
exactly.
stomp on it, it's going to open a hole. So anyways, this one attorney, I kind of, I said, look, there's no way.
Yeah.
So you can just forget it.
Yeah.
If you want to go to court, that's fine. We are not putting on a whole new roof, when she caused the damage in the first place.
Right.
We're happy to repair it.
Yeah.
It's going to be $700, but we'll eat that. Because my client's a good investor, right?
Yeah.
So he has a reputation.
Yeah.
And then we didn't hear anything for weeks and weeks, and then that attorney dropped the clients.
Oh.
Yeah. And one of the things I had argued and here's where agents come in, I said, look, and now I started talking directly with the mom.
Okay.
And I said, you hired a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And you hired a licensed inspector.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with the inspection condition of the house, you need to go after your agent and your inspector.
Right.
But I can tell you, this isn't from a practical matter, I can absolutely tell you that agents will just walk away from, they'll just, oh no, this isn't, you know, oh,
Yeah.
you need to, they'll blame everybody under the sun.
Sure.
I mean, this is a real estate program, I hate to disparage all the real estate agents, but
Sure.
in my experience, 80%, 75-80% of the real estate agents out there
Yeah.
are grossly incompetent.
Right.
You know, they can get the bare things done,
Yeah.
and if everything goes according to plan, there's never a problem, and that's
Right.
why there's so many of those agents out there. But
Yeah.
but when you know the rubber meets the road, so to say,
Yes.
the agents are very inexperienced and incompetent.
Right.
And they never take responsibility for things because they don't really realize that agents, they get into that world like, hey, I can help my friends buy a house and I can make money.
Yeah.
Not really understanding that these are hundreds of thousands of dollar assets that people are buying and live in, and there's
Right.
a lot of details.
Right.
So tip number one,
Yeah.
find and work with a highly experienced and competent real estate agent like Yoshi Shiraki.
Oh, thank you.
I know, I was make sure you plug me on your show, so I'm going to start plugging
Well, thank you.
Because it does matter.
Right.
Experience matters. Don't hire your neighbor because they just got their real estate license.
Right. That's true.
Okay. So the mother refused to settle. She refused to listen. And I said, look, and she says, we want to go to arbitration.
Uh-huh.
Which is actually the next step. And that's
Gotcha.
that's something you need to decide when you are a buyer.
Got it.
And you're looking at the purchase contract. There's a section. It's the arbitration clause.
Yeah.
And you know this one, Yoshi. And
Yeah.
there's 2 boxes that you can check.
Right.
In the event of this dispute, the parties will go to arbitration first.
Or shall.
Or may.
Or
go
may,
to-
yeah,
They
yeah,
shall
exactly.
or they may.
Yes, exactly.
Right? If you check the shall box,
Yeah.
that means you have to go
Right.
to a mediator first
Yeah.
before you can actually file a case in court.
Right.
If you check the may box,
Yes.
you have the option.
Right.
And the difference, how they play out, is if you go to arbitration under the Utah REPC,
Okay.
then each side pays its own costs.
Gotcha.
So we had checked the shall box. We had to go to mediation before they could sue.
Gotcha.
Which meant my client was now going to spend legal fees
Yeah.
and defense fees going to arbitration, and plus the costs of the arbiter.
Gotcha.
Right, 'cause they
yeah.
cost money.
Yeah.
Just to prove his point that he wasn't responsible for replacing
Right.
the entire roof.
Right.
And so we went to arbitration,
Uh-huh.
and they started and they put us both in the same room, and we were pretty adamant. We said, "Yeah, no, we're not replacing the whole roof. So
Yeah.
that's not even a starting point."
Yeah.
And the arbiter could see that we couldn't negotiate, so he separated us, put us in separate rooms.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in our room, I basically told him the whole story, what happened. That the mother's
Yeah.
the one that put her foot through the roof. We were
Yeah.
still in repair. We're still going to give him the $700 to
Yeah.
repair the actual damage,
Right.
not the whole roof.
Right.
And we weren't budging from that.
Yeah.
And he came back. Well, what about a little bit? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. This is absurd. And
Yeah.
the arbiter knew.
Yeah.
And he finally came back and said, okay, they'll agree to the $700.
Got it.
So when my client paid the $700 and had it repaired,
Yes.
but he had about another $700 in fees for the
Yeah.
arbiter and me.
Yeah.
And I gave him really reduced costs. I just kind of showed up and
Sure.
talked to the arbiter is all I really did.
Got it.
But still, an arbiter is they'll be $400 or $500 an hour.
Woo.
And that was split between
Yeah.
the 2 parties. And it was probably 3 hours
Wow.
in there.
Wow.
Or close to that.
Got
And
it.
so it took some time, and we won.
Yes.
But yeah, the lesson is get a good inspector, hire
Yeah.
a qualified agent,
Yeah.
understand that as a buyer, once you buy that house, you've bought all the problems with it.
Yep.
There's only one thing that survives closing before we get on to the next example.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
almost ready for a commercial.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? There was
One thing that survives closing.
Oh, the one thing that survives closing is if there's a problem with the house.
Yeah.
And you're thinking about suing the seller, going after the seller for damages or to repair costs.
Yeah.
The only thing that really survives closing is a material defect. That means there's something wrong with the house that really harms the value or function of the house. It has to be, material is a legal word that means it's significant.
Got it.
So a significant defect that you find in a house, that the seller already knew about.
Oh, okay.
And the seller didn't disclose it.
Ah, gotcha.
So if the seller knows about something, doesn't disclose it, and it's not something that would be found on a regular inspection, the seller can still be liable.
Right.
So sellers can be liable for conditions of the house if they. And this really is covering the situation where the seller's hiding something, like intentionally hiding something.
That makes sense.
And so, but other than that, when you buy a house, you basically bought the house.
Gotcha. In this particular case, just out of curiosity, did this investor have Rick, his roofer, go and do it, or did they want their own roofer to do it?
I think that we gave them the cash at that point because we didn't want any further connection.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
At that point, if my memory serves, we just gave them wrote a check for $700 for them to, and then I think they could do with the $700 whatever they wanted.
Right.
If they wanted to apply that towards repairing, replacing the whole roof.
Gotcha.
They could. So that's what happened.
Okay, perfect. Then my curiosity was because of that, because like if there was further roof problems, you'd be like, well, dude, you have the money, you hired that roofer, go after that roofer now. And
one thing, if you are selling a house, right, and a lot of sellers will do this. Like after closing, the buyers move and they find little things.
Sure.
And they all come back to sellers. They don't go to their agent and say, what do I do? And the agent should say, sorry, you really can't go after the seller for that.
Right.
Because it was my job.
Yeah.
My job and the inspector's job to tell you these things. And
Exactly.
And we blew it.
Right.
So they say, oh yeah, you got to go after the sellers.
Yeah.
That's an agent's standard response.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to take responsibility.
Of course. Yeah.
And so, hire really good agents, hire really good inspectors, know what you're doing.
Yeah. And then the tricky thing with a lot of agents is they're the ones that recommended the inspector, so now, they can't say, go after the inspector.
If you're an agent, give a list of at least 3 inspectors and let your buyer decide who to hire.
Right. Very good. Awesome. Well, that's a great story. We are going to take a quick commercial break. We've got more of those stories when we come back, so stay tuned, and we will be right back.